You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want: unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan-African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa. I hope everyone can hear me. And I can't say I want to be sorry for what we've been doing or for the time that we've been delaying out right here, because our expert, Professor Dr. Al Wahab, had some delays at the job, and so, but I thought these lectures are very important that we have to carry it on today. And because we're always doing our live broadcasting and it's a recording, I know most of our viewers from the continent are probably asleep now. That's not a problem, because they will always have to wake up to review and to rewatch. So it's a live broadcast, which means it's a production that we're doing. But I heard Marsha Lawrence say the best thing is to do, or the best feelings when watching the Pan-African Daily, is to be live. So if you were sleeping and you thought, oh, I can jump out, it's weekend out there. No, our weekend has not begun. So watch us, listen to these very, very important lectures with Farouk Al-Wahab, who is going to educate us about Senegal yesterday, Senegal today, and the future of Senegal. And remember, Al-Wahab is our political analyst and correspondent live from the continent in Accra, Ghana. So this week we are treating the topic of Senegal and the new president and what Africans should expect from this leadership, as well as we are going to, carry on next week with Burkina Faso. We're going to treat Burkina Faso. So it's going to be a series coming up all this while. I'll have to do a little bit of edit a little bit, because all our platforms that we're streaming on are not connected. I'm so sorry. And I think that's the reason some people have been waiting for so long. So I'm sorry. I have to add the other platforms that we're streaming from. I hope it's gonna pick it up. Wonderful. Good. Great. Everything sounds good now. I'm perfect. So I welcome you all to this special edition. Welcome. So what has been keeping you, Al Wahab? Okay. If this stream is going to cause us some trouble, we're going to shift it tomorrow. So I just want to make you understand, like you see, he's already, he's hanging, and that has been happening for a while now. So just be patient a while if we don't have to, So Al, did you hear me? Because you are kind of
I hear you.
Freeze. You were freezing anyway. So how are you? What has been keeping you busy today that you kept us waiting for 2 hours?
Well, as you are aware, it could be any other way. Today I had some good meetings somewhere, and African meetings, as you are aware, the anticipated time or the expected time, normally you get either a skip up or skip off. So just like that. So the meeting delayed a bit longer, coupled with the traffic on today being Friday in Ghana, across African continent during the rush hour. People are prepared, or people are traveling to their various hometowns. So the city center and the major roads are always very occupied around this time. So there's a huge traffic in the Accra Central area, as well as the suburbs. And that indeed kept me a little bit. I would have normally arranged to be at home by 5 p.m. local time, Ghana Central. That is GMT. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but not notwithstanding, here I am. The important thing is we'll be able to connect and speak to Africans. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And really, despite all the tiredness, I actually can see it, and I know how your schedule, how busy you are for you to really find time to lecture us on what Africans should know about Senegal yesterday and today, particularly the new leadership on the continent and in Senegal. We really appreciate you on that. So I just don't want to waste our time. I would really want us to dive into the topic of today, to just like, how do you feel like when we want to talk about Senegal? Do you like, oh, because last time you were here, we were talking about South Africa, you actually put some spiel and like, oh, you know what, let's just be honest. You know, we can get something out of this coalition. And all of us was like, oh my God, our heads. But what do you feel like today you want to talk about Senegal? Are you really like, wow, I'm looking forward?
Well, I mean, Doctor, uniquely Senegal, which is what used to be the Republic of Sudan. I hope you've not forgotten, or Africans are not aware of Senegal, Mali, pre-colonial time used to be one country, and it was called the Republic of Sudan. So, courtesy to the same French, for whichever reason, when they decided to divide the two countries, and one becoming Mali and the one becoming Senegal. But interestingly, most of their tribal settings, linguistics or languages, tradition, culture, you find pretty much Senegalese and Malians somehow very close, as well as the Gambians. But then predominantly between Senegal and Mali, they have a lot of commonness. And the interesting thing is that Senegal is so unique compared to all the French West African countries, because it is very clear that all the French West African countries, i.e. Lomé, Togo, i.e. Benin, Cotonou, Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, and then Guinea, Guinea, sorry. And then before it runs as far as to your side of the continent in Cameroon, when the Bakassi side was an English, but then of course now you can call it as a French provinces. However, that side of it was more or less part of West Africa. And then indeed you come to most of the West African French are more than the normal French countries in the other regions of the African continent, especially the French. They didn't go to the south and they didn't do much in the east, except the central, and the concentration was in West Africa. If you look at it from a stand viewpoint of independence, it is very clear that Senegal, not different from all the French countries in West Africa, as I've named most of them, when the French were harassed as a result of the Ghana's independence and that of Nigeria, and the pressure on the entire West African belt, which put pressure on the French to concede and grant independence flamboyantly, but I'll use the word arrogantly, flamboyantly. The French decided to give all these West African French countries independent in 1960. They were sick and tired of the noise in their ears. So you will find out that the independence were granted between some of them 2 days, 3 days. If they grant Togo independence September, August, they grant Burkina Faso maybe the same August, 5 days interval. They did Togo, then they do Mali, they did Senegal. Interestingly, all of them, except the only country that the French had a tough time, that they have to squeeze their own independence out of the balls of the French, was the Guinea-Conakry. So Secretary, who was very close allied to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, after Ghana got the independence in 1957, he could not wait. So he said that, yes, I'm with my brother. So there was a kind of alliance between Ghana, Guinea, Mali, Secretary, and then Modibo Keita, Kwame Nkrumah. So therefore, Senegal at all this time had been somehow, I'll call it, a silent state. What happened? What happened was that all the African countries, that in the 80s, that in the 70s, in the wave of the political tensions, post-independent coup d'etat, Senegal is the only country which has not been touched from 1960. So I call it a very unique political system that had been in there. One would wonder, why was it possible? It had been possible because of the two gates, of the two spiritual gates, i.e. the Alpha and the Juba. The Tuba, I think they are. So they, the two gates of the two religious, so the Islamic religious bodies, and the two sheikh, or the two kings, representing the greater Senegal tribal settings. They indeed, and I must congratulate and then say that Senegalese are very, 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 let me call it, very disciplined when it comes to their culture, and then also their traditions. So if I'm to call about who respects the African culture, the culture of an authority of tradition, the culture of a tradition of spirituality, the culture of authority of religion, then one would say that symbolically, you can look at the people of the Republic of Senegal. Why? Because during the wave of the African coup d'etat, whereas countries like Ghana, Nigeria, they were doing the staging coup back to back. Mali, that has been a very strong, close ally to Senegal, they've had series of coup d'etat. Guinea, coup d'etat. Gambia, coup d'etat. The worst of its kind is the Guinea-Bissau within the same region. The other neighbor on the northwest of the western part of the Senegal, climbing to the north of Africa, is the Mauritania, which also, of course, part of Mauritania. Either one would say part of Mauritania was Senegal and part of Senegal was Mauritania. They have also had a series of coup d'etat, civil unrest, etc. But surprisingly, but as I use the word uniquely, Senegal had never been touched. So when you look at the African continent of the 54 countries, and you take out some of the frontline states like Zambia, Botswana, and I think Malawi, and some few others. Malawi is on the eastern side, Namibia, and some of the southern states. Senegal is the only country in West Africa that has not seen coup d'etat. So we must actually congratulate them for that kind of highest, let me call it, feat that they've reached politically. Because their first president, Leopold Sédar Senghor was able to steer the affairs of Senegal, even though pro-French. And let us not forget, let me remind you and then the cherished listeners that the French, all the people, the post-independent French African colonies, I'm referring to the country where the French protected or the French granted them independence. The leaders were all deputies in Paris. The leaders were all part of the Agric ministry in Paris. French actually coached them, trained them, and then made sure that they will be the French protege, or the French would take them as their idols. Let us not forget about somebody like Hofor Boigny, Leopold Senghor, and then also Abdou Diouf. All of them were more or less French pro-French at the time. But over the period, we're centering on our discussions on Senegal. You realize that all the West African countries that got independence, including Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, they all lasted no longer than 8 years. After 6 years, when they started to preach and propagate the agenda of what we call Pan-Africanism, or they declared themselves as Pan-Africans, what did we see? The uprising, and then the tempo with which that they pushed the agenda of independence, starting from Ghana. Not in the case of Liberia. Liberia did not have, let me call it, a square direct independence. Liberia was an NGO-made country by a certain non-governmental organization of the United States of America that went out there settled. So directly, as you and I know that Liberia, they had some kind of, is an American colony. Americans till today cannot validate that on the African continent, they have a colonized country called Liberia, because its colonial or the colonization of Liberia by a colonial master, it has not been identified, because NGO was not a country to call it a power, let's say a country like France or a country like UK or superpower. So Liberia's case is a little bit also a different thing. They claimed to have had their own independence even longer, more than any of the West African countries, before even Ghana. But we're talking about directly applied fought for independence was the first, that's under the sub-Saharan, was Ghana. So 3 years after Ghana's independence was when the Nigerians did it. But if you look at Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, the Nigerian independent icons, all those, none of them, they all lasted very short. Kwame Nkrumah lasted just only 1957 to 66. If you look across board, even the post-French or the pro-French independent colonial master, the post-colonial presidents, all of them lasted very few. In a unique country like Burkina Faso, they started having coups d'etats rapidly, immediately after their first president or the post-colonial president. They started having coups d'etats one after another, every year after every year, every day after a day. Just not different from Guinea-Bissau. They were doing it rampantly. But in all this, Senegal gave a chance, 20 good years, that they waited patiently for Leopold Senghor. After Leopold Senghor, when they had done 20 years, countries like Ghana had already seen 2-3 coups d'etats. There came Abdi Diop. Abdi Diop did about 19 to 20 years. Also, I would say economically, stability, not the best of his kind, but in terms of political governance and the peace, as compared to changing governments like Togo, like Benin, like Ghana.
Okay, I think he's freezing. I know this is a very difficult topic. Political topics is not actually the vibration on Pan African Daily TV, but it's worth it. It's what is part of the history that we're trying to uncover for Africans to get to know how to deal with these political scenarios. So someone
We
like
were
me,
also staging coups.
Yes.
We were staging coups in Ghana abnormally, whilst Nigeria, so it became more or less a contest on the West African sub-region, that when Ghana stages coup, within the matter of a year, Nigeria must also stage coup. When Nigeria stages coup, within a matter of 2 years, Ghana is also in the coup again. The same thing happened to Burkina. So, Côte d'Ivoire at that time was the only French province in the West Africa that also was kept intact. And look at the interesting scenario. La Côte d'Ivoire was a commercial hub or commercial capital of the French ECOWAS, whereas Dakar was the administrative hub of the French ECOWAS. And then in terms of, let's say, linguistics, the French, as in the French, then Beninois also took over. So the French were actually interested in Abidjan and then Dakar. So they did everything possible to keep the governments of Abidjan under any stability that they, the French, wanted, because the two men, Leopold, the two men, and then also Cote d'Ivoire first president, okay, Houphouët-Boigny, all of them, look at the number of years Houphouët-Boigny went, and the number of years Leopold, and then also came Abdou Diouf. When Abdou Diouf was doing 20 years, we had the likes of Kona Bide also doing longer years. So these two countries, there was no coup anywhere. Cote d'Ivoire have succeeded. They had only one single coup d'etat made by Robert Gay. Robert Gay, when they during the little bit of this shakeups between the same Hassan Ouattara, the argument of Ivoirien, politique ivoirité, when they were staging those politics, that is when Robert Gay staged in and then succeeded a coup, took out, and then he also wanted to. And then at the time that he had transferred power to Laurent Gbagbo, then Robert Gay, for whichever reason, they killed him. You understand? So therefore, Cote d'Ivoire had only one coup up to today. The elections that brought Hassan Ouattara, that election, of course, political upheavals, political differences have been there between Laurent Gbagbo and then also what's the name? Soron Guillaume and his team. And it was all as a result of Alassane Ouattara's nationality contest, which the law, which Kona Bide would say that who is an Ivoirian, qui est Ivoirien, and then he would suggest that Ivorian is the one whose mother, mère et père, whose mother and father are Ivoirians. So when what's the name? The president Laurent Gbagbo came, he said then mère et père. So mère ou bien père. Then that politics just played a role, leading into the elections that created the political tension when the Soron Guillaume took part of the country from Bouaké to Danane or Bouaké to the north and divided, making it very difficult for, how do we call it, Cote d'Ivoire. I beg your pardon, hold on a second, my camera. Let me just, okay. Making it difficult for Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, the elections, and then subsequently Alassane Ouattara emerged. But back to our country, Senegal, all these things were not experienced. So tentatively, Leopold went for 20 years and some change. And then Abdou Diouf went for 19 years, close to 20 years, without any difficulty. Transferred power, political power. There were some kind of, Africa, a bit difficulties. He doesn't want to go, he wants to go, but subsequently he conceded and allowed Abdul Wad. And then look at the interesting thing. The turnaround time of Senegalese developmental agenda.
Yes. Hold on right there. So if I understand, it means, or could one interpret the reasons for the coup d'etats in the other West African countries and Senegal no coup d'etats? Did it mean, or could it be interpreted that it's because the Senegalese government was under the puppet of the France and so would keep someone in long term? Or how would you justify the fact that all the other countries were actually like, because I can understand after the independence there would be a lot of confusion between them, what kind of system coming from the post-colonial and what they used to know. So that kind of struggle I thought the other nations that were actually revolting and coup d'etats were still trying to find themselves. Why was Senegal confident or comfortable in that situation after the
Well,
independence?
well, I've told you that Senegal is a symbol of two spiritual gates. That was my preamble and the introduction. That the Alpha and then also the Tuba. These two gates are two religious bodies like the two sheikhs. If you go to Nigeria, you used to have something like that. The Sultan of Sokoto, the Sultan or the Emir of Sokoto, the Sultan of Kaduna, the Emir of Kano. When at that time that the spiritual bodies were strong, under no circumstances that the Emir of Sokoto or the Sultan of Emir of Kano will speak to Boko Haram and they will still not listen. It wouldn't have been the case. And I'm saying that Senegal, that was what made possible that the two spiritual fathers, the two spiritual religious bodies, the two religious gates have always spoken to Senegalese. And the Senegalese did not listen to government, regardless either being the French pro or whatever type or prototype of government across West Africa. The two spiritual bodies have spoken to Senegalese that under no history, under no circumstances, should you kill your brother to become a president. Our spirituality, we will not support. So that is the main reason. So it means that in the Senegalese army, it was the conscious mind of every Senegalese soldier that at no given point that would he turn the rifle to the fellow brother and kill him because he wants to be a president. Because they have at the back of their mind that they will not be supported by any of the two spiritual gates. So in this scenario, if one of the two were to be like, okay, I want this side to support, I want this one to be the president, then they would have had, regardless of the French protecting or French not protecting. But then let us not forget why, yes, let us not forget one history. The oldest rebellion, listen to this carefully, the oldest rebellion group in the whole worldwide was formed in Senegal by a woman, Casamance rebels. The Casamance rebels.
Yes. Today, the conflict of Casamance is still existing. I even revolted. We made a lot of, revolutions in Germany because of the Casamance Treaty. Yes.
Yes. So look at this scenario. Even with the presence of the country where the first rebel group on the African continent, not the ANC, not the SWAPO, not the Politburo, not the Mozambique, Samora Machel, not the Angola, Jonas Savimbi, okay, the UNITA bandits. No. The oldest one have been the Casamance. So imagine the Casamance have been very active at that time. Nevertheless, even though they had uprising fighting in the villages, they were only targeting the French at the time, fighting with the French. So the Casamance had not had a major escalation because where are the French? They don't live in the Casamance provinces in the villages, but the Casamance are holding guns and arms still in the village, but they don't even attack, as you see in Nigeria, Boko Haram, as you see in South Sudan, as you see in Sudan, as you see in Kenya, as you see in Ethiopia or Somaliland or any of the Mali, where they have about 14 rebel groups, Burkina Faso, 12 rebel groups, and then also Niger, a lot of rebel groups. You have not found that activeness in and out of Casamance coming to Dakar to strike. But even within the middle of Europe or in Europe, I'm referring to an advanced nation like the United Kingdom, the Great Britain. We had a rebel group. You understand? We had the rebel group from the Ireland, Sinn Féin, Jerry Adams. They did back to back all what they wanted to do. They were staging, there was a rebellion. Spain, up to today, they have a rebel group. So Senegal had a rebel group, But their target at that time was Casamance wanted, and they didn't want to be part of the French alliance. They didn't want to be part of French Senegal. They want to be Casamance. They wanted to have a self-determination. They wanted to have a country on their own. They wanted to have a voice on their own, and they wanted to have an autonomous body, a control of they themselves to determine their own destiny. That had been between the Casamance and the French whites. So look at the Casamance back to back. How many times have they come to Dakar or any other Senegalese city to kill or cause mayhem? Zero. Their activeness is just only to wage a campaign and make noise that we still want our our country. We still want to be known as Casamance people, Zegenshop. We don't want to be called Senegalese, or we don't want to be part of Senegal Republic. So they, when they were joining the republics of the various areas, districts, metropolitan regions of Senegal, Casamance always abstained that they will not be part. But as a result of these two religious bodies, till today, Casamance, whether we like it or not, as today, we have presidents and prime minister coming from Ziguinchor or coming from that area. So it has reduced also the tempo. But back to the first president of Leopold, second president, Abdou Diop, third one, Abdou Wade. The only time Senegal have had a harder situation that would have actually in any other African country triggered a coup d'etat was and would have been in the hand of Macky Sall. To me, out of all the Senegalese presidents, he's the most disappointing, who nearly and tried very hard to plunge the country into political crisis. But thank God, the Senegalese also look back and listen to their spiritual godfathers. And here we are today, another successful transfer of power. After 12 years, which is 6 ans, 6 years, 2-day mandate, the 2 terms of Macky Sall, the Senegalese have to force it down for him to step down. You realize that he was warming himself, becoming like Alpha Conde did, tried to warm himself, doing like what Alassane Ouattara did. That was actually his focus and emphasis. Bearing in mind that Senegalese, Abdou Wade, he gave a political son of Macky Sall. A political son, a political birth was given by Abdou Wade. Why am I saying this? I'm saying that because the almighty Abdou Diop, even when he was old, he didn't want to retire, he didn't want to resign. So the caucuses and the people who forced Abdou Diop politically, because he was all out pro-French, to give down because he has exceeded his limit of tenure of office. So they needed to seal it. Before then, it was just like what Togo is going through. 7 years for 7 years, unsealed, no flaw. Gabon, set down, 7 years without any flaw. So you can go. But then it took Abdou Wade. And this same Macky Sall, energetically at the time, as a godson of Abdou Wade politically, they were the people who forced Abdou Diop for him to leave power. And quietly, together with the spiritual warlords and the spiritual fathers of Senegal, the old man was spoken to. He quietly conceded and left the scene. When Abdou Wade came, the job, the developmental agenda of Senegal, the symbol of beauty of Senegal today, the credit undoubtedly goes to Abdou Wade. Because all the items that were set up in his manifesto, that where and how he wanted and where he wanted to take Senegal, I must say that after the 6 years, nobody, look at his election, the second election, it was
I guess he's freezing again, as you can see on your cameras. And but I'm just really interesting following up Africa's Last Born. your comments on this topic is like you are really, really versed on the political landscape of Senegal, uh, um, to say West Africa. And I really enjoy the questions and the input you're putting here, which actually is tying with the same thing Al is trying to educate us on. It is complex, people. Now we can see the Africa that we want trying to disengage and dislocate because it's not the original Africa that we have. And so most people don't understand when we say it's difficult, it's really hard. The position of Africa in the world and Africans in the world is complicated, very complicated. For these reasons that we're doing these lectures is for us to be able to understand, to know that our challenge for the liberation and the freedom of Africa is not just going to come on a platter of gold, because listening to this political melange. Most of us don't know about Casamans. I knew Casamans because we had fought for the voices of Casamanians who said, no, we want to be Casamans. That's why it's so unique. They didn't want to belong to Senegal because Senegal was under this French, colonial rule. And so they refused. They stayed an autonomous country within a country. So it is really critical, it is tough if we don't understand the political landscape of Africa, how we got ourselves there. We just see the ballot boxes. Most Africans just go and vote. They don't even understand the history. They don't understand the game. They don't understand, he who rules is controlled either through its partners with international bodies or systems, or you have to stick to your local people. But like Senegal is so unique, like what he was saying, like that's why I keep saying, why upon all the other countries in Africa, of course, my country too, Cameroon, we've never had a coup d'etat, I think. Yes. Um, we've never come so close to having so many coups d'etats than in the other provinces. And Al is really walking us through the easiest tracks why we see the peaceful transfer of power in Senegal with our newly elected president with no hinge. And you see the international news was not interested. They don't care a damn because it was peaceful. It should have been chaos. There should have been a lot of dead bodies or people fighting each other, and then we come in with our cameras and play the whole movie. So, understanding the political landscape of Africa would help us to achieve economic independence of Africa. Then Africa would be able to be on the chessboard to play the ping pong and to understand what we're dealing here with. Because it is so very easy that because we don't question, Africans are still given little gadgets to go and vote. And that's why we keep talking about the corruption in the election, and everybody that always wins comes out with always through a coup d'etat. Because if there's no coup d'etat, what would I want to say? No fair and free elections will take place. So to say. So, but how do we get here? That's why we're doing the political topics with Al once a week. We choose a topic and a continent, a country, and analyze what has been going on, particularly with this new leadership that we're experiencing in Africa today, in West Africa today. So today we actually wanted to brush this issue of Senegal. Now, I think a takeaway, if he doesn't come back here tonight, we're actually going to be ending this show because, the main lecture was for us to understand the background. I think he's come already so far. The first takeaway is Senegal has never experienced a coup d'etat since its independence. What I take also was the issue of, he said something very, very pertinent in the beginning. I don't think you guys were even connected since we started late. I never heard that. Upon all the researches that we've been doing to say Senegal, what we know as Senegal today was a makeup of Mali. What did he say? Mali and what to become the Republic of Sudan. I don't know if anybody ever heard that or even had research on that. I'm very happy he's back. So I'm going to ask him again to repeat that. I'm so sorry about your internet or whatever is happening
Is
out there. I'm
internet.
sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
I got you. I got you. A question again, Al. I was just trying to rephrase and keep my audience warm before you come back. If we weren't going to have you, we'll be calling it a shot or a day. You said something in the beginning. What was this present day Senegal, this present day colonized version of Senegal used to be what? Mali, and what that form
It used to be
Senegal has.
Mali and Senegal. The two countries were called the Republic of Sudan. And then the other Sudan, the other Sudan is called the Sudan. There's nothing called Sudan. There was a Republic of Sudan, and then the Sudan. And the Sudan, it is the Sudan in the northern part of Africa, call it the northern, and then also eastern and central, because they are within a bigger regions, sharing border with the North Africa, East Africa, and then the Central Africa. That side is called the Sudan. But the Republic of Sudan was where today we have Senegal and Mali.
Africa's last born is saying something. I mean, before we get into this, like, vote will never liberate Africa. Democracy produces weak leaders. I mean, I think you've been saying that all the time here, even in your last presentation. While you answer that question, we really want to actually wrap up on the topic of today, like, who is this new president and what do young Africans expect of him? Because the idea is Africans are so excited about the fact that he's a young leader. But I keep saying all the leaders on the continent of Africa also were elected at this same age. So, but what's the way forward, and what is going to give Africa that spirit of Pan-Africanism to say he's going to be fair, he's not going to stay like Macky Sall or the others? So please, over to you.
Let me I was building actually for the public people to understand the country Senegal. Unfortunately, the internet disrupted some of this, but nevertheless, in continuing, we had already dealt with the first, the second president, Abdou Diouf, third Abdou Wade, fourth being Macky Sall. I was building a point where Macky Sall tried to screw the Senegalese political system and disrespect even the spiritual authorities. But when it mattered most, the two gates, the two spiritual fathers, they spoke and won Macky Sall, because it was under his tenure that the person who gave him the power to become the president of Senegal, when they decided not to allow Abdou Diouf to go for the longer period again, is the same thing that Macky Sall, with his father, that is Abdou Wade, also said that you are tired, sit down, let me continue. So he gave him the mantle for him to continue. Nevertheless, the very first 2-3 years of Macky Sall's presidency of the Republic of Sudan, Senegal, you remember an incident, the first demonstration ever that has rocked the Republic of Senegal, where a human being or somebody died, was when Macky Sall refused and stopped the aircraft that was carrying Abdou Wade when he had gone to Mecca, returning to his country after he has peacefully surrendered, handed over to a person he trained as a God's son. Politically, that was when the Senegalese reacted. And that went on. Going further, till today, until Bassirou had come to be a president of Senegal, Karim Wade, who was seen as the possible replacement of his father, whereas Macky Sall, thought that he was going to have a competitor. He thought he was going to have somebody to compete him. He rather put him in exile. So throughout, with all the good things that Abdou Wade did for Macky Sall, he put the son, called Karim Wade, in exile. So throughout his governance of the 10 years, leading to the second year, the other 2 years making 12 years, Karim Wade had been in Qatar. Meanwhile, Macky Sall, Karim Wade, these were the best of friends. Whatever businesses they did under Abdou Wade. It is Macky Sall and Karim Wade. They did it together. But then, because he didn't want the boy to come and then be a presidential candidate for his father's party, because Macky Sall made sure that he created another party out of Abdul Wahab's party on his own. So therefore, he wanted to crash. It was out of this that the Casamance boys, that last 10 years, in 2014, we're in 2024. It was out of this that a party called the PASTEF was established by Ousmane Sonko. That is how the genesis of this young man coming into the Senegalese politics, because they could not understand and they couldn't agree to the fact that there is a man who brought you to political limelight. That is Abdul Wahab making you Macky Sall a president. All of them were part and parcel of pro-Abdul Wahab. But then in the end, when there was a division and a separation, and the party of Abdul Wahab, which was the major opposition party that contested power against Abdou Diouf party, then the boys decided that, okay, if we don't have a party of Abdul Wahab anymore, then we are going back to our hometown, to Ziguinchor, to the Casamance province, and then have our own party. Then we will have it a movement or a party. That is where they founded what is called the PASTEF by Ousmane Sonko. But look at the interesting thing. These two young boys, they didn't have the education in France. Let me just remind you, all the French presidents in the French West Africa and the French Central Africa, they were all French scholars. They were all pro-French students. But Sonko and Bassirou Faye, all these boys, they were all in the Sheikh Anta University of Senegal. And interestingly, the two of them, they also did taxation. They were tax officers. They studied taxation. So they've been friends on the university campuses. And then they were also having the same agenda of politics, and they were also having the same professional background. Whereas Sonko was the person who was the leader of the PASTEF, the general secretary was Bassirou Faye. So that is how these two friends, and then realizing that they were pushing the agenda directly, indirectly of Abdul Wahab. So the supporters of the Abdul Wahab party, which Macky Sall made sure that he pulled out all the important politicians, and of course the greedy African politicians as we know them, they all went to join and took positions with Macky Sall. And they decided to turn around the destiny and the constitution of Senegal, making it possible that he succeeded in going in for the third term with the same ideology and philosophy of Alassane Ouattara, that you cannot use the same party to go 2 terms per the constitution, but you can have a third party, different party, and so impose yourself to be a presidential candidate. Macky Sall did. And this was what the boys said, that no, Senegal constitution does not allow after 2 terms you have to step down, since they finished that time of Abdou Diouf. So that is where the difficulty and the challenges and the problem between Ousmane Sonko and Macky Sall started. So he went back to his base, formed the party in Casamance, and already the fighting spirit of the Casamance, but with the respect to the Tuba and with the respect to the Alpha. But when Macky Sall realized that there was a new shift of certain energies in the Senegalese populace, crying for the end of its massive unemployment, crying for the end of Senegalese, what do we call it? Of course, every African country, there's a corruption, but under Macky Sall, it became overly too much, because he was building the strength and energy in the political elite, pro-French. So the French were seriously backing him, with all those people, remnants, and some of the politicians he took out from Abdul Wahab to join him. That is where the energy, that is where the change that is where the psychology, that is where the ideology, that is where the physical energy of the two young men, and they decided. What did we see? Usman Sonko, who is the leader, Siddiqui, what happened? He, and I'm referring to, Macky Sall, brought an issue of a sexual harassment that has taken place for nobody knows who the lady was involved, who the lady is, and for that matter, where that report was made and where the convention, or whether he raped, or whether he harassed, or whether he touched. Up to today, undeclared versions or different versions by Macky Sall trying to put the gentleman out of the ballot box. And he succeeded in doing that when he, together with his allies, established and created about 42 political parties. The same thing like His Excellency, what normally happens in our country, Republic of Cameroon, where they have also about 25, 35, 70 different political parties, small pocket parties. Macky Sall made sure he had more parties. And then he sat down to prune down that who is qualified and who is not qualified. So technically, he has put Usman Sonko 2-year jail term, making him or disqualifying him part of Senegalese constitution so that he became eligible to be a presidential candidate. And then when Bassirou Sonko was demonstrating after Sonko was in prison, Bassirou Faye was also still with the force of campaign, making sure that Sonko should be out. Macky Sall didn't. So it became a very brutal, of which the first biggest demonstration.
I mean, we're really icing the cake right now. This cannot happen. This cannot happen because this is the slam dunk that we were waiting, to say. And that's how these two young gentlemen smashed out, the tiring leader. I'm still waiting. I'm waiting. Come on back. We want to know the magic. We want to know what actually motivate. Of course, the motivation is already there. Changing the constitution, as we know, is the normal thing. But that force, that Bassirou and his friend, Mr. Sonko, that alliance that they built together, to kick out Macky Sall is very important for Africans to know. And another thing was, I was still coming to the point where we have to attack him on the fact that these two did not have any stakes in the leadership of Senegal. Like he said, never was affiliated to the presidents or belonged to the elite groups of leadership. Because like what we see, transition has to be elite, like people that have already bought the countries and it's their countries, as a matter of fact. And for two young guys coming out of this leadership, this elite class, to form an alliance and win, I mean, we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to this conclusion. Yeah, Al.
So, I think our respective lines, either from my end or your end, we're having some difficulties on the continent. Okay. So, very, very quick one. So, Macky Sall, upon all what he did, he schemed in and schemed out. Senegalese youth have spoken. Now they brought in who supposedly would have been the prime minister or the secretary of the party that he is, Bassirou, because Macky Sall didn't want to see the 49-year-old Sonko, who had been a thorn in his flesh for the past 10 years. That Sonko had been support of Abdul Wad's vision, and then telling Macky Sall, and he has been against Macky Sall in every right, because Macky Sall made sure that every political person or political head, he was able to manage them to his side for his comfort. It's only this young man who decided not to agree and to fight for the likes of Karim Wade, even though until Macky Sall left office, Karim had still been in exile. Now I know he's back to Senegal. courtesy to the new president and their new vision. Then this young man, who expected or did not expect, he had not been all-out politician. Sonko, yes. Sonko had been in the politics. He coached and he brought and he trained Basiru Faye. But that is where destiny brings us in life. That he who rather fought to become a leader of the Senegal youth movement, to topple and then also lead Senegal into a different continent, in a different life, in a different economic paradise, in a different political paradise, in a different environmental paradise, different security and all that. These have been the agenda, and then also the spirit and the strength of Usman Sonko. He understands and he looks and understood the political settings of the Senegal as a tax boy. Then his friend, who also shares the same vision, that we can make this country work, because as a tax student, they could tell that how to make and create money and create wealth and create employment for the people of Senegal, out of which, and part of their statements had always been that Senegalese form part of about 25, 30 to 40% of all the Africans crossing the peninsula, the Mediterranean Sea, to Europe, to Lampedusa, and then to Greece, to other places. So these were some of the spirited, these were some of the things that spirited them, that we would not allow, because some of their good friends, as they've normally said, died in an attempt to flee out from their own country for better future elsewhere, while they believe that Senegal has what it takes: the youthful population, the energetic population, the vibrant population, and the active, strong Senegalese people that we all know. They can't wait for that energy to be used and be redirected to make the country work. Out of that, they voted them whilst even both of them have been convicts. They voted for Basiru because Macky Sall thought that Basiru is a young boy, 44 years, of course, who is not too much out there politically, who wouldn't chase him, but Sonko would. So he rather incarcerated Sonko and made sure that he cannot come on the ballot box. Indeed, here is the case. As I've mentioned, destiny has its own course. Then the Senegalese voted them. So for the public to know, these are two young men, of course, 39 and 44, respectively, not because most of them, like you said, came with the same years, the same age. Will they change over the time, or they will not change? I will sit here and say that these two boys cannot disappoint Senegalese and Africans. Indeed, he is not being the youngest, but if you talk about elections in such a dynamic function, in election in such a surprising fashion, elections in a surprise outcomes, which in unexpectedly, that a person who had not been an African elite politician with background of money, Basiru Faye, I'm sorry, didn't have anything. Sonko himself didn't have anything. They have nothing. The Pasteur party didn't have more than 10 cars. The Pasteur party didn't have party offices. They could not mobilize any bigger money there. They lived and they survived on little donations, and their donations were controlled by Macky Sall. They could not keep bank account to roll as a party money, whereas they would do disbursement. None of them didn't happen. So this is the first time, regardless of their ages, this is the first time we having a vibrantly new, young, dynamic leaders that have been voted into power by the country called Senegal. And I must say, it's a credit to all of them. Yes, it's good you clapping. It's a credit to Senegal. It is also a credit to the two spiritual gates, because they spoke to Macky Sall that we hold you accountable and responsible. You decide for Senegal, you stand by Senegal, or you stand by the French. These were warnings given to him that at any given time, because Macky Sall tried to raise the bar and heated the security port, what was he seeking to attract? he tried to raise what is called confused states. He tried to raise what is called red flag. He tried to make it sure the state of emergency. So he tried to decide to live on power, to stay on power and make sure declare state of emergency. The religious men, the religious body said that no, there's no emergency in Senegal. So they took the turn and won the Senegalese army. And that is spirituality, and that is religious body, and that is the true tradition, that is the culture speaking. They told and won the Senegalese army because Macky Sall was trying to very hard so that the army would take place to his favor. The army would come in as it has happened in Mali. The army would come in as in the case of Niger. Army will come in as in the case of Burkina Faso. So out of that, he will be able to sneak out or be back and be protected because he is rather pushing or covering the army as in the case of Alpha Conde and then also Doumbouya in Guinea. Something like that is what Macky Sall wanted to do. Unfortunately, Senegalese didn't listen to him. Why would he transfer power and then run away? Why would he give up after losing election that he himself brought his own candidate who didn't go anywhere? They didn't win anything. Why would Macky Sall bolt of Senegal? What happened? What has he done? Now, whether the young man will work or not, I'm answering your question now, is that look at the prime lands, state properties that were confiscated or that were, how do we call, they do with that? There's a better word to say that. They do divestiture. They did divestiture of all state corporation and enterprises, Macky Sall and his cronies. Those ones that he used the French to front. Public corporations, public utility enterprises, Macky Sall auctioned all of them to his cronies, his French, his partners, and the French cronies. The young man have said that anything that is for Senegal remains Senegal's asset. He has converted, he has confiscated, he has reverted all the agreements, all the lands, regardless of whatever you built on. Either you remove your property or they confiscate back and give to the government. That alone is A+. That alone is A+. Under 3 months of governance, you could see the spirit of the Senegalese is reawakened. You could feel in the air that all the mineral resources, Senegal, like any other country in Africa, every African country is blessed in its own way, with their own unique mineral resources. Now they are saying that we will develop. Let us not forget, during the COVID time, there are a lot of things that had come from Senegal. The Berger University, for instance, so many and so huge headways that they've made as a result of research. At the COVID time, we saw it. There had been successful research that had been conducted in Senegal, and you and I know, you are French, you're supposed to know, a lot of the French scholars on the continent of Africa had been schooled or scholarized in Senegal, either Sheikh Anta or Berger University. So therefore, they have what it takes, and they know what it takes with the backing and the support. And now the Casamance has calmed down. They have told them, because their ancestral grandfathers, grandmothers, etc., that laid down the arms. The French are no more here. And if you see the shake-up of the Casamance boys telling the French to cool off or to leave or not to intervene and put their mouth in the politics of Senegal, it tells you that the Casamance spirit and what they have been waiting for, that somebody will look at the face of the French and tell them that we will not allow you to manipulate, mishandle, misappropriate, and misapply and confuse our governments. That is what the customers are saying, that our sons are there to protect our interests. So, peace. No more customers rebels. So the boys have what is called peace. No more budget going into the budget, going into rebel protection and rebel, how do we call it? A whole lot of, no. So the little money that they use to spend, or the money they spend on the customers region for security, all those ones have come to a halt completely. Now the boys are looking into which areas, and they have already mentioned agric is the way they're going to go, and technology is the way they're going to go. When it comes to the sound and peaceful security, Senegal has security, natural security, governmental security. Before we went off, your line went off. I was saying that among the entire African region, it is the only country that does not lose more than 2 to 3 killings a year. More than 2 to 3 killings. In your country, my country, Ghana, we have killings, more than 50, 100 killings a year. Inexplicable circumstances, inconclusive investigations. We have them just like that. Either ritual killings or vindictive, whatever form, political. It happens almost everywhere in Africa. Senegal uniquely, they don't have. Even accidents is one of the countries in Africa with also minimal accident rate. So they are somehow blessed in a different way, different from most of the African countries. That is why Senegalese, I would say that they are very religious, because they listen to religious authority more than the government authority. It has made and reshaped the future of that country. So what they needed was somebody like Abdul Wahab to continue the work of Abdul Wahab. So if these young men, as they've said, the developmental agenda that was set up by Abdul Wahab, they are going to follow. And they've also mentioned the good projects and the good works, of course, that were set up by Macky Sall. They'll continue. They are not going to do like Ghana, like Nigeria, that party A started, I will not complete. Or party B started, I will not give them the credit by completing. They are going to complete all Senegalese projects that were used, that were started by Macky Sall, because the money of Senegal. If somebody talks like that, it alone symbolizes, and it tells you that they have arrived. The youthful exuberance in them, the energy in them, the focus, and then the attention that they've actually created. Every Senegalese is watching them. That if you said the old political class were not good, we've given you the chance. Come out from jail and lead us into the what? To the paradise. And I think that is we call, if it is in Christianity, we call it the triumphant entry into the Jerusalem by Jesus Christ. So that is what the Senegalese boys are doing. I would say they are human beings. They are capable, or they are bound to make mistakes. But doctor, I'm saying that we should encourage them. I'm saying that the movement that quickly they've visited almost about 10 opinion or elderly leaders on the continent. They've been to Kagame, they've been to Abuja, they've been to Ghana, they've been to other African countries, and then the sub-region, introducing themselves and also telling them about their vision.
Okay, I think it was already very obvious that we're rounding up people, and I see Dave. Dave Bertrand said, "Good night, Dr. Tata and guests." And I said, "No, Dave, you have to wait. We're closing the show all together. When we all gather here together, all of us are busy. All of us want to go out. It's Friday night. So why would you want to go and leave Dr. Tata here in the studio? No, it's that the education is not just for me alone, it's for all of us. So Dave, wait and don't go until we close this session. Wrapping up everything, the message that we wanted to get and to pass over to young Pan-Africans and Africans worldwide is the youth of Africa are taking this responsibility regardless of their failures, regardless of what is going to happen. And like he said, One of the things that I noted, and I've just been observing, like he said, you know, you take up a leadership of a country, you go around and meet your elders and meet the elders that are in other countries. But not just only that, he went to meet Traore. He went to meet Traore in Burkina Faso. And we saw the way they are flexing around, like, you know, this is us. We see even Basiru Faye, His Excellency, he's not hiding out to say, you know what, I'm a polygamist. Hey, come on, give me a break. One of my wives is a Christian, one is Muslim. And we are happily married together, never ashamed or being of double standard. So I think a hand of applause to Senegal, to be honest with you. I mean, we've listened this, and we're going to really share this conversation because I'm ending it at 1 hour right now. We're not going to exceed, you know, 1 hour, 15, 20 or stuff like that. This is Friday night. People just want to chill. They want to relax and go out. I understand. It is weekend also. Some people might not go out, like many people like us. We just stay and have a chill and hang around and just, you know, whatever. Um, what I want us to get from it today is never to give up on the young leadership that is coming up on the continent of Africa. It's very easy. We're going to judge from the footsteps of the predecessors. I do know that we should be very cautious. We should ask a lot of questions, but I think what they need right now is the utmost support of Africans, whether you are a Senegal or not a Senegalese. Whether you are a Burkina or not a Burkina Faso, we are all one Africa and one agenda for Africa by Africans. So I want you to rally our youths, rally our elders, and let's begin to understand the new trajectory. One thing I believe, we already said it here when we started. This is the new wave of Africa, and I'm so sure that this is the moment of truth. I think you must have already realized it. I don't want to believe that any one of you that has been on the Pan African Daily TV following our conscious education programs has not noticed anything, any spiritual uprising in your life, any change, any consciousness. The way you think, the way you reflect, the way you see things you used to see can never be the same again. So, because of this wave of the renaissance of the new Africa, things can never be the same. So, it's also imperative on us to change the way we see the new things. Means we have to rise up in consciousness. Because I truly believe in these young guys. I believe in the new spirit of the new Africa. And one thing I know about Senegal, apart from the coup d'etats that Dr. Al Wahab was talking about, Senegal is so traditionally rooted. If you talk about the djembe culture of Africa, it's Mali and Senegal. I don't know any other one, to be honest with you. We in West Africa, most of the time, we mingle. But Senegal, they take their djembe culture to the world. I mean, I've been in Germany at my festivals that are organized. It's always been led by Senegal. They stay royal and loyal to their culture of their ancestors. Senegalese do that. They keep they are not apologetic. I mean, you will see them in their Senegalese gandu. The Senegalese are just the least people to walk around with French styles trying to, of course, there are some of these double standards. But the real, particularly this of Casamance, I made a very good experience what Al is telling us today. So it is time for us, regardless of the challenges that they're going to meet ahead. And like he said, and like I said before, they are not from the elite class. Just pop from nowhere. Two friends that say, we're going to make it work. Pay allegiance to the two religious bodies. We follow the trajectory. And now they're building coalitions and partnerships with Burkina Faso, with Niger, with Mali. And we see this new spirit. We cannot give up on them. So I'll just conclude. I already was like, I knew you wouldn't come back because I know what time is out there and the internet is just tripping. So what do you want to wrap up? What is the biggest message that you want to throw out to Africa? So you
The biggest message is very simple. The biggest message is very simple. We've had a time in Republic of Sierra Leone where a president, and I'm talking about Valentin Strasser and Serge Musa, these two boys, when they overthrew Joseph Momo, who was then the president from the APC government of Sierra Leone, over the years, Siaka Stevens and then Momo was independent president. They lasted for so many years. When they overthrew them, Strasser was only 26 years. Let's not forget it was a coup d'etat. His vice president was 23 years. The ever in the history of the world, not Islamic monarchy or kingdom, where we've had a 23-year-old boy being a vice president and 26-year-old boy being a president, a head of state. It happened in Sierra Leone. Today, the president of Sierra Leone, Madabiu, was the oldest among them at the time, at the age of about 27. And he stopped that coup and transferred power to Tijankaba, giving also another birth to Sierra Leonean democracy back on track. Now, Senegal, interestingly, have not gone through those kind of upheavals in terms of coup d'etat, etc., military regimes. But now that we have the young men, I'm saying that their activeness is more than a coup d'etat. How they came into power, it is a coup d'etat with the thumbprint. How they came together was a spirit of coup d'etat, which went against the old political class, namely Leopold, namely Abdou Diouf, namely Abdouad, and then also Macky Sall. All the four, I would say that they were politicians. This government has the boys, the young men, they are not politicians. They are loving and lovers of Senegal. They love their country. They see the mess. They are angry. They are fired up. They see the way forward. That never in the history that they want their brothers and their friends to go over the Mediterranean and cry and die. So for me, I think it's a telling point. For me, I think it's the reverse point. And I know that Macky Sall, he did his best to some extent, but he wasted some of them, the good works that he did as a result of political, how do we call it, misunderstandings. But these young men, the expectations on them from the Senegalese public is very huge. And we are all praying that they water down the huge expectations, let them go through the mills of governance, let them go through the mills of administration, let them go through the governance management, and then let them go through political management. Through this, with a good mindset, through this, with a good focus, I don't think these young men will sit and let fingers be pointed at them. They'll betray themselves, and it will be so much hypocrisy if they themselves turn against the Senegalese. Me, I'm of the full conviction and a full hope that Bassirou Faye and his friend, his boss, Sonko, these gentlemen are going to work. I'm giving myself, and let's give ourselves in 2 years, looking at the preparation and how they've started warming themselves. I don't see these guys as these ones who are to appoint personal friends only, or who are to appoint. Look at the political appointments and the appointments they've made so far. It is across the entire space of the whole Senegal.
That's so
Missing
true.
few political, yes, bringing in very new ones that we will study on the job. Experience, we don't have experience. We are chief director will be there. In the case of Ghana, in the case of Nigeria, Sierra Leone, permanent secretary will be there for 15 years. And they keep renewing, claiming that he has experience. So if you have experience and you could not make your ministry work the last 50 years, what makes you think today you can do it? So I might as well choose over. I choose somebody who is to start afresh with energy and zeal, seriousness and blood in their eyes, rather than to rely on somebody who is only from morning to evening, only taking pressure drugs. Because he has seen all monies in this world. He has seen every house. He has properties in Dubai. He has properties in UK. He has properties in France. They refuse and they don't want to die. They are only concentrated on their children, their family, their friends, and their health. They don't care about the larger populace. Therefore, I'm looking at a change, but we should grant them the peace. We should pray for them, grant them the peace. In fact, the peace for them to be able to work patiently and then correct their mistakes, make mistakes and correct them and become a better teacher and become a better administrator, become better managers of the economy, and then make sure Senegal move. And it becomes a symbol of an African country, once again, that I've seen only 5 leaders since 1960. 64 years of the history of Senegal, only 5 leaders and no coup d'etat. No political prisoner in Dakar as we speak. No exile leader in Senegal except self-imposed exile leader of Macky Sall himself. And they don't have any fugitive. They don't have rebel group outside Senegal fighting to come in, except the old 600 years or 650-year-old Casamance rebels, which is not even a force that is that they will be fighting against Senegal. It is existent, but they've not been vindictive. It is existent. They've not been extremely proactive doing engaging killings and fighting. No. Their enemy was the French. Now they have people on their own, the boys of their own, the boys of their own land, who is now sharing the affairs of Senegal. Senegal has peace, and I believe that they will be able to do it. This goes on to say that on the continent, what the Senegalese youth have done, we should emulate if we claim that the old political class have not helped us. If we are saying the old political system have not worked out, then there's nothing that we can rely on. People will be so the youth who understands ourselves. So let us take a cue at what Macky Sall, how you tried to treat these young men, and the youth have spoken. That will not let
your volume. Your volume. Release.
Are you here?
Your volume. You're out of volume.
I'm surprised. Hold on.
I mean, we hear it, but I don't know if the audience can really hear that.
I hear you very clear.
This is okay. Of course, I'm okay. It's from your end.
Okay. So, the youth of the continent, we are all preaching the same. That we want youth leaders. We have youth leaders. So they should be preparing with their fingertips, their thumbprints, as most of the African countries are going into the ballot box. They should take this and look at what Senegal have done and be looking and be giving chances to non-elite politicians who are prepared and have the seriousness in the country at heart. We must give birth to new Pan-Africanists. We must reawake the Pan-Africanism. We must bring back the spirit of Afroism, not the spirit of colonialism. So if we are bringing the spirit of Afroism, then the Afroism encompasses our traditions and culture, our religious identity, whether it is by church, either by Islam or Christianity, it doesn't matter. We Africans, we must live as such and make sure that we'll be able to identify what needs and that needs to be done. China did, they succeeded. Vietnam have done it, they succeeded. Singapore, they've done it, they've succeeded. The Asian tigers, they were poorer than us. The Balkan states of the Europe, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Romania, Estonia, Yugoslavia, Croatia, Dubrovnik, Serbia, Albania, Kosovo, Albania, Serbia, all of them were poorer than most of the African countries. And now look at where they are because of activism and then also paying attention to the needs of the country. They have succeeded. Romania have turned their life around after the fall of Ceausescu. So if it is possible for a country like Bulgaria looks today like Germany and beautiful than Germany, there's nothing that Africa with good mindset we cannot do. We just need leaders who are focused and prepared. And I'm seeing that leadership in these two gentlemen. This will be the message that I leave with you, to your cherished listeners and viewers, that we should sit back quietly, fasten our seat belts, not be in a rush. Let the three gentlemen drive African country, Senegal, into safety, and the others will learn it from them. Come next year, 2 years by this time, what this young man will do will force the African continent, the youth, to vote the elite class that we said we don't want. They will vote them out of power.
Thank you so very much, Al. I know it's really pretty late out there. I mean, even here, it's almost midnight.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. So next week, we're going to be treating Burkina Faso and Traore, isn't it?
You're most welcome. Anytime, any day.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, sir.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night.
Guys, yeah. Thank you. Good night, dear. God bless you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye. So thank you once more, our listener. I know it's really late, and so we're not going to blah, blah, blah. We already heard that. One thing I like, please just subscribe, like this show. Make sure you're going to be, you're going to be really sharing it and chop it into TikTok, videos and repost it as much as you can, because we're really entering into serious schools. As you can see now, this is just the Kemet University that we were talking about, to understand the ancient Africa and the modern Africa states, democracy, elections and stuff. Never was our role in Africa. In ancient Africa, we ruled by kingdoms where the kings and the queens and the communities, set rules which they adhere to. And so coming into this kind of mix and then different stages of our life, we must do understand that it is not a walk in the park. But of course, we are doing it and doing it fatly, bigly. Yes, we are on it. So I want to thank you so very much, and I wish you a very pleasant weekend, Ubuntu, with all my love to you. I hope we are going to watch the show with the Pan-African quiz from our young champions from the PLO Lumumba Foundation, which shall be taking place tomorrow live on Pan-African Daily TV, Facebook. I just want to try if we'll be able to cross-post to YouTube. But the program is not supported by YouTube, so I really hope that we're going to cross-post somehow for our YouTube followers and viewers. But if you do not, if you're already on YouTube, Facebook, Pan-African Daily TV, YouTube, apparently you came from Facebook. If you didn't come from Facebook, I know you're following us all around. So please, the time is 10 or 9 p.m., 9 a.m. 9 a.m. in the morning, GMT. So please, you will get our jingle anyway if you had subscribed. If not, hey, just follow us on Pan-African Daily TV, Facebook. You're just going to watch us. We really want to see and get this young, vibrant mentees and youth who were here yesterday promising to give us the best of this quiz. And I think it's the first time that Pan-African Daily is going on the street to listen to our young people and start putting them to work, by testing, their capabilities, not just in terms of political leadership, but of course, the ones that we are building through Pan-Africanism, through Ubuntu-ness, to take up the Africa that we want. I don't think we're really even particularly investing right now in these ones that are taken, but of course, it's also a good step into the right direction. Okay. So I want to thank all of you that, regardless of the lateness and the time schedule, and it also even, his videos freezing, you never gave up. I mean, that's the spirit. I'm not doubting. I'm just only appreciating you again. I'm not saying that it's something that comes to me strange, because I mean, this community here and this village here and this family here, you can never find it anyway. Okay, so I thank you so very much. We're gonna see us tomorrow. First with that show, definitely we're going. Professor James Moore is owing us a show if he can. Maponga Joshua is very busy in Uganda. They're doing some settings and stuff, so we would have to not, be easy for us to get him so soon on Pan African Daily. I mean, in the next couple of days, but next week it can do. But like I said, we have to follow the young executives in their first Pan African quiz. All right. So thank you so very much. Yeah, thank you, all of you. Please don't forget to subscribe, share. And of course, oh my God, how could I forget this? If you look at our rolling text, we have changed our donations strategy, because now we're operating on the continent, and our PayPal, we just close that and keep it when we're in Europe, because even the funds don't get to us on the continent for us to be able to work, like we said yesterday. But I already thank those of you yesterday who stretched out, even though you supported via the PayPal account. I will take time tomorrow to explain the strategies on how you can support Pan African Daily TV for us to evolve on the continent of Africa. It's very simple. I mean, like, even you have to get a mobile app that could send money to Cameroon. Okay. I mean, I hear people use a lot of what I call remit, you know. So you have to download it. It's a very one touch thing. I'm not here to commercialize or promote any app or whatever. Whatever works for you, that you can send money through MTN mobile money to us, is really going to help us. So whether you're using we transfer or you're using remit or whatever, but that's the recommendation that I had for those that have been, chipping in, giving us $1 and something to drink coffee while we are sweating, on the continent. You see, we're going brown and darker, which makes it really lovely. But at least we need your support. We really need this baby to grow. We need to really move ahead. We need a lot of water. So please support us. So you can already see on this on the sticker. I tried to put. I mean, it was done with our technicians today. So they put the MTN mobile number, the MTN mobile number. So you want to send us money, just you can even Google and say what app can I send mobile money to Cameroon, and you're going to see a lot of them lining up. And so you just need to give the country code, the country of course, and then you select mobile money. Okay, MTN mobile money. And so you can transfer us anything that you send to us. We'll really be grateful. This is the continent of Africa, people. Like, except that you want us to go and start looking for extra jobs to be able to, and we are just not capable. We are not equipped with that. We need equipment. We travel around. We talk to young people. We're building the in-house studio, which we're going to be getting our live conversations live and direct. And it's not only Cameroon. We're going to be going to Ghana and other space. Of course, next month we're already going with Professor James to Ghana. And so this mobile money functions in West African countries. Okay. I mean, we do also expect your checks or whatever. But if you still are not sure how you want to support us, how you want to engage to donate to us, please just send us an email at panafricandailytv@gmail.com. We're going to support you. Okay. We're going to support you, show you how you can support us. Our young people need it. These leaders need it. The mindset education is not chocolate. Of course, a people that have been bamboozled for thousands of years, to bring them back to their real state of understanding is like taking somebody out of the ICU right now and then trying to rehabilitate them. And you know what it takes. We're all doing our work generously and with no salaries. All we need is your support to be able to push us further so we can reach out more easily. Okay. The company, the one last thing, the continent is expensive. You would see the quality of and standard of living, whether in Europe or in America, is the same on the continent. Okay, but then you look at our currencies, how weak they are, but the purchasing power or the products or the price of rent and everything is absolutely the same, and we rely on you. Okay, so share this and encourage one another. Thank you so much, John Africa, our fundraiser on Pan African Daily, and all of you that have been, chipping in, greeting one another. John Africa is saying, hey, make a monthly contribution, and we're going to be sending our WhatsApp link for those that are actually going to be saying that we love to make a commitment every month. So it makes it much easier for you and for us as well. So I wish you good night. We're going to be talking about this special edition. If we don't have a guest tomorrow, we'll really be talking on how you can support Pan African Daily in so many ways to evolve on the continent and build the Africa we want. So thank you very much. I think everybody wants to go out. It's Friday night, and me too. Why not? So, so we see us tomorrow. To support our young people. Those of you in the diaspora, I know it's still afternoon, and you're either busy at work or other things. I wish you a happy day. And those of us that are retiring, we see ourselves tomorrow. So thank you very much and good night. Bye.
You are watching the Pan-African Daily TV with Dr. Susan Tata. The Africa we want. Unity, consciousness, our culture, our spirituality, our history. One Africa for Africans worldwide. Motherland's calling its diaspora home. Join my voice. Join my team. Join my campaign. Campaign 21 hashtag 1 million subscribers on the Pan African Daily TV YouTube. Be a volunteer. Apply now. Be the new Africa.